Welcome to my channel.
And this is English Podcast Station.
All right, are you ready to boost your English and tech skills? Get ready for a deep dive into a really cool resource. It's an episode of the podcast Learning English with Podcast Conversation, episode 9 to be exact. And it's like a fun way to learn English words about the internet, so we're going to use it to jump into the language and the tech behind it all.
Yeah, exactly. This episode is basically a conversation between a customer calling an internet provider and the customer service representative. They're discussing internet plans, and afterward they have a breakdown of some vocabulary and phrases. We're going to focus on that conversation, and we'll pull out some cool tech stuff along the way.
Okay, cool. So imagine you're the customer in this episode and you're calling up this internet provider, Gallinet. You want to be able to do all the things online like gaming, chatting, watching movies, the essentials. And they offer you this basic broadband plan, but you have no idea what those tech details actually mean. Sound familiar?
Oh yeah, it's super common. Most people just think about what they want to do online, but really getting how internet plans work can get you the best experience possible.
Exactly. So in this episode, the customer is offered a plan with a download speed of 512 kilobps. Now, I know kbps stands for kilobits per second, but what does that even tell us, really?
Well, think of it like this. Kilobits per second, kbps, it's like a bicycle for your data. It gets you to where you need to go, but it's not going to be the fastest ride. Megabytes per second, or mbps, that's more like a car, faster and smoother for sure. And then you have gigabytes per second, or gbps, now that's like a rocket ship for data.
Okay, I love that. So for browsing online, maybe a bicycle will do. But for streaming movies, you'll probably want at least a car. And for all the serious gamers out there, you need that rocket ship of GBPs.
Exactly. The faster your speed, the smoother everything online will be. You'll be able to download stuff faster, stream without any buffering, and game online without any lag.
Speaking of lag, that's actually one of the words they highlight in the episode. It's that annoying delay that happens when your internet is slow, like when you're gaming and it freezes or a video just keeps buffering. Nobody wants that.
Definitely not. And that's why choosing the right internet plan and connection type is so important. The episode talks about broadband, which is just a general term for high-speed internet. But did you know there are actually several different types of broadband connections?
Wait, really? So it's not just broadband, there are different types?
Yeah, there are. We have DSL, which uses your phone lines, cable, which uses the same cables as your TV, fiber optic, which uses light to send data, and then there's wireless, which has everything from Wi-Fi to cellular networks like 4G and 5G.
Wow, that's a lot. It's kind of like choosing a car, There are so many options to pick from, each with its own pros and cons.
That's a great way to think about it. And just like with cars, you need to think about your own needs and your budget when you're picking an internet connection.
True. And talking about budget, the episode also talks about the cost of internet plans. And it mentions bucks as slang for dollars, which is definitely a good one to remember.
For sure. And it points out how providers often try to sweeten the deal by waiving installation fees or giving you free things like a pen drive. They use the phrase throw in for that, which is another good idiom.
Throw in, yeah, that's a good one to remember. Basically just means they include something extra for free as part of the deal.
Yeah.
Okay, back to the different types of internet connections though. Could we break those down a bit more?
Sure. Let's start with DSL.
Okay, DSL. That one sounds familiar. I feel like I've heard of that one before. What is that one all about?
Well, DSL stands for Digital Subscriber Line, and it basically uses your phone lines to give you internet service. It's been around for a while, so it's usually available even in those more rural areas, but the speed can be a little iffy depending on how far you are from the provider's central office.
Oh, so the farther away you are, the slower the connection. Makes sense. So what if you are closer to that office? Is DSL still a good option then?
Yeah, it can be, especially if you're not a huge internet user. But if you're streaming a lot or you're into gaming, you might want to think about cable internet.
Okay, cable internet. Now that one's pretty common, right? Tell me about that one.
Right. Cable internet uses the same coaxial cables that you use for your cable TV. It usually gives you faster speeds than DSL, and it's pretty much everywhere in cities and suburbs.
So if I'm in a city and want something faster than DSL, cable internet would be a good choice then.
It could be, yeah. But if you're looking for the absolute fastest and most reliable connection, fiber optic is the way to go.
Fiber optic.
Yeah,
It's one that uses light, right? I heard it's super fast, but also kind of pricey.
you're right. Fiber optic uses strands of glass or plastic to transmit data as light, so it's crazy fast and reliable. It can be more expensive than DSL or cable, yeah, but it's becoming more and more available and the prices are getting better.
That's good to know. So fiber optic is best for people who really need that super fast connection, like for gaming or streaming or working from home.
Exactly. Especially if you're on a lot of video calls or downloading huge files, fiber optic will give you the best experience, no question.
Now, I'm a bit curious about wireless connections. We talked about Wi-Fi, 4G, and 5G, but what are those exactly and how do they all fit in?
Well, wireless connections use radio waves to transmit data, and they're getting more and more popular just because they're so convenient and flexible. Wi-Fi is what you probably use at home or at a coffee shop. It lets you connect to the internet without needing a cable.
Oh, right. Wi-Fi is great. What about 4G and 5G? Those are for phones, right?
Exactly. 4G and 5G are for mobile phones, and they let you access the internet on the go. 4G has been the standard for a while, but 5G is the newest one, and it offers much faster speeds and lower latency.
I heard 5G is more than just faster internet on your phone. It's supposed to be a game changer for a lot of stuff.
Oh, absolutely. 5G can revolutionize everything from self-driving cars to virtual reality. It's going to open up a whole new world of innovation and connectivity.
Wow, that's amazing. So basically we have DSL, cable, fiber optic, and wireless connections, each with its own pros and cons. Sounds like choosing the right one really depends on what you need and what's even available where you live.
Exactly. That's why understanding these different technologies is so important. It helps you make smart decisions about your internet service and get the best experience online.
Speaking of making good decisions, the podcast episode also talks about some useful English vocabulary related to internet security. For example, they mentioned firewall, which is a security feature that protects your computer from hackers.
Yeah, think of a firewall like a bouncer for your computer, checking everybody's ID before letting them in. It keeps the bad guys out and keeps your data safe.
Okay, I like that. So a firewall is like a digital bodyguard for my computer.
Yeah, that's a good way to think about it. And it's a super important part of staying safe online.
Now, going back to the episode for a sec, the customer is trying to decide between this basic broadband plan and a premium package that has a wireless router and a personal firewall.
Yeah, that's a tough choice. The premium package has more features for sure, but it's more expensive too.
Right, they have to weigh the pros and cons. And that brings up another word from the episode, download. They use it as a verb and a noun.
Right. As a verb, download means to save something from the internet onto your computer. And as a noun, a download is the actual file or program that you downloaded.
So you could say, I'm downloading a new game, or I have 3 downloads waiting.
Exactly. And how fast your internet is will directly affect how quickly those files download.
This is making so much more sense now. I feel like I'm actually learning something here.
That's what we like to hear. We're not trying to just throw a bunch of tech jargon at you. We want you to really get these concepts in a way that you can relate to and use in your own life.
I really appreciate that. And it's cool how this episode of Learning English with Podcast Conversation has given us such a great starting point for this discussion. It's amazing how much we can learn from just one conversation.
I know, right? And it just shows that you can learn anytime, anywhere.
Absolutely. Now, I want to hear your thoughts on something. The customer in the episode seems a little overwhelmed by all the tech stuff. Have you ever felt that way when you're trying to choose an internet plan or deal with any kind of technology?
Oh yeah, for sure. It's easy to feel lost with all that technical jargon. I think the key is to just ask questions. Don't be afraid to ask.
Right. It's better to just say you don't know something than to pretend and then end up with a decision you regret.
Exactly. And usually the customer service people are happy to explain things in plain English. I mean, they want you to know what you're getting.
So true. Don't be shy. Ask away. It's the best way to learn and make sure you're getting the best deal, you know? Now, before we wrap this up, there's one more phrase from the episode I think is super useful. I have no idea. I mean, it's simple, but it's really helpful when you're just lost, you know?
Oh, totally. It's totally fine to say that anytime you're feeling confused. Don't be afraid to admit you don't get something.
For sure.
Yeah.
It's always better to just ask than to pretend and get it wrong.
Absolutely. Learning is all about embracing what you don't know and finding the answers. And sometimes the simplest phrases are the best.
So well said. Well, I think it's time to wrap up this deep dive. We've learned a ton, had some fun, and hopefully got everyone listening a little more curious about the world around them, right?
It's been great diving deep with you.
All right, so we covered a lot today in this deep dive. We learned about all those different internet plans, connection types, and even picked up some useful English vocab along the way. And it all started with that episode of Learning English with Podcast Conversation.
Yeah. We went from bicycles to rocket ships, from DSL to 5G, and from firewalls to I have no idea.
I love how you put that. But before we sign off, I want to leave everyone listening with something to think about. Okay, think about how you use the internet. What's most important to you? Is it speed? Is it a reliable connection? Cost? Security?
Yeah, those are all great things to consider. Once you know what's important to you, then you can think about what kind of connection fits best.
Exactly. Do you need super fast fiber optic to handle all that gaming? Or would basic DSL be enough if you're just browsing and checking email?
And don't forget your budget and what's even available where you live. Not all connections are the same, and what's good for one person might not be good for another.
Right. It's all about finding that balance, you know, your needs, your budget, and what's actually available. It's like putting a puzzle together, but with a great reward at the end, a smooth, fun online experience.
I like that. And just like a puzzle, sometimes you have to try different pieces until you find the one that fits.
So true. Don't be afraid to shop around, compare those prices, and ask all the questions. The more you know, the better you can navigate the world of internet providers, which can be a little confusing sometimes.
And remember, the internet's always changing. There's always new stuff coming out, so it's good to stay informed and be open to new options.
Very well said. I think it's time to wrap up this deep dive for real this time. We learned a lot, laughed a little, and hopefully inspired everyone to be a little more curious about the world.
It was fun diving deep with you, and we can't wait to explore more cool topics in future episodes.
Until then, happy surfing, everyone.